All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's coffee chat. We're really excited to have Amy Peters here with us today. And Lindsay, why don't you introduce Amy?
Yes. Hi, Amy. So Amy Peters is a fitness and nutrition coach, and she's the owner of Shape of Strength. And with over a decade of coaching and more than 5,000 sessions, Coach Amy is dedicated to helping women over 40 navigate the challenges of perimenopause and menopause with confidence and strength. As a certified menopause health and fitness specialist through MedFit, Amy understands the unique hormonal shifts, weight changes, and energy fluctuations that come with this stage of life. She offers tailored exercise plans, nutrition strategies, and lifestyle support to women to help them regain balance, energy, and vitality. Amy's passion comes from her belief that menopause can be a time of transformation, not limitation. Through her Reshape You system, she guides women to break through barriers, achieve lasting weight loss, and feel empowered at every stage of midlife. So welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate that.
So, yeah, tell us a little bit more about your Shape You program and how that kind of ties into the whole menopause, perimenopause, women over 40.
Yeah, it's interesting because, a lot of times when women hit this midlife phase, the thing that I hear a lot is the same things that I used to do aren't working anymore. And so there is a shift in physiology. There is a shift in our hormones that causes a huge impact in our life, right? Everything from how we sleep to how our hormones process energy to our emotions, our mood, our energy levels. And so, when we were in our 20s and if something, if we had some extra weight we wanted to get rid of, it was like, okay, let's just go and do a little extra exercise and maybe clean up the diet a little bit. But now it's like, no, it's got to be a whole, lifestyle approach. So it's not necessarily that the basics, right? The basic principles have changed. It's really that women at this stage of life and this piece of their, in this phase of life, essentially have to just be better at doing all of those things, right? You have to be more consistent. You have to be more on top of it. The good news is, of course, we should be a little older and wiser, right? That's one of the benefits of aging, is just being able to be a little bit more capable and confident. But yeah, that's really the secret there, is really just being more consistent with the basics.
Okay. Remind us what some of the basics might be.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think, inherently we all know, eating right is probably going to be the biggest component to everything, right? So, one of the interesting things too is as women get older, and people in general, men and women, we become what's called anabolically resistant, meaning it becomes more difficult for us to put on muscle the older we get. So again, that goes back to, all right, making sure that you're getting plenty of protein, because if having muscle, building muscle, having strength, right, for mobility and longevity, if that's important to you, you're going to have to make sure that prioritizing protein is really at the top of the list. The right kind of exercise, right? We all know that there's that cardio piece where we want to have our good heart and lung health, but strength training is the only form of exercise that is going to help you build muscle. So having that mix of those things. And of course, some of the more boring things like, making sure you're getting to bed and getting a good night of sleep, and managing your stress and drinking your water. Those are probably some of the more also basic lifestyle components as well.
Excellent. And I know that's a lot of those things are difficult for people who are busy, taking care of kids and families and working and doing all the things. It's not always as easy as it used to be to just make sure you're not grabbing something on the go and it's not super healthy, or skipping that workout. I'm definitely guilty of that. But but no, and I keep hearing too from trainers, especially for people, but women especially over 40, that the strength training component is really important. Tell me more a little bit about why is strength training so important for people as we get older?
Yeah. So when we think about the benefits of muscle, there's many, many benefits. When it comes to longevity, for example, resistance training is going to help build bone strength. It helps strengthen your soft tissues, ligaments, and tendons. It helps build those muscles stronger and more resilient. So when things happen, like you fall, you're going to be more, break proof. Essentially, you're going to be able to survive those kinds of things. Also, the mobility piece, right? Being able to move fluidly, right? Not have to feel like, oh, I'm so achy and, sore and like I can barely get off the floor. Like we want to make sure that we can still stay active. I mean, I can't tell you how many times clients come to me and they say, I really want to keep up with my, future grandkids. I want to keep up with my kids now, but future grandkids also. I want to go take those wonderful trips to, Europe or, South America, right? Enjoy retirement. And how wonderful is it to be able to prepare yourself for that? So that's one of the components to it. When we look at it from a health perspective, right? For one, it's helping you with your metabolism. It's keeping that metabolism essentially burning at a higher rate, because the more muscle we have, the more calories we can burn from sitting at a desk and working on our computer to every time we move, if we're unloading the dishwasher, going to walk to the mailbox, and then of course when we exercise as well. So it really just gives you the ability to have a more flexible diet because you can burn more calories no matter what you're doing. But also when we look at it from a health perspective, right, it is going to help you manage your blood sugar better. It's also a big preventer of chronic disease, chronic illness. So it's a really important thing, not only from like what you can do and how you look, but also from a long-term health perspective as well.
Awesome.
You spoke about the importance of sleep earlier. So tell us some more about sleep or tips, right, around sleeping and getting good sleep.
Yeah. So I think too, it's, there's different things that are going to impact sleep. And sleep is one of those really complex things that, if somebody tells you they're having trouble sleeping, it could be from just so many different factors and really even a combination of different factors. So when it comes to like kind of helping you sleep better, you first want to focus on the controllables, right? Because there's a lot of things that are not necessarily in your control. So when I work with someone who is having trouble sleeping or sleeping well, we always look at sleep hygiene as being the biggest kind of like check off, right? Like how are we doing as we wind down for bed? Are we checking our emails right before bedtime? Are we doom scrolling right before bedtime? Are we watching like a murder mystery about somebody in your town like before you go to sleep and you're completely wired and like can't fall asleep, right? So what are the activities that you're doing leading up to bedtime? Making sure that you have a consistent bedtime, right? Not like, 9:30 one night, 1 o'clock in the morning the other night, so making it kind of a consistent, not only bedtime, but actually what people don't realize is your wake up time is the thing that you really want to anchor. So if anything, right, even if you go to bed too late, you always want to wake up at the same time every morning, because that's what really like resets your circadian clock. So, and then other things too, like the temperature of the room and making sure it's dark and it's peaceful and like, just winding down before bed instead of like doing those stimulating activities, like maybe reading a book or meditation or doing some stretches or just turning on some music that you like to listen to or some white noise or whatever. But those are going to be kind of the things that, I think we kind of all inherently know, but it's really just a matter of like, okay, pulling off that Band-Aid and saying, okay, like I just need to make this a priority.
So that I didn't know about the waking up part was being kind of the most important part. I know weekends tend to be sleep in a little bit.
Yeah.
How much does that screw you up or not really?
Yeah. So, from a physiological standpoint, you really don't want to be off by more than an hour from your typical wake up time. So if you can keep it within that, that's, an optimal thing. There's this concept called sleep debt, right? So there's essentially like, say, for example, like you stay up too late certain nights, you have to get up early the same time the next morning for work things or whatever that's going on. We can make up to 2 hours of sleep. beyond that, like, you're screwed. So try not to get to where you're like so exhausted, like it just becomes too hard to like make that up. But yes, inherently, like a lot of times people will kind of make it up a little bit, but try not to make it up in like big chunks. Like try not to do it all at one time.
Don't sleep till noon.
Yeah, don't sleep till noon. Exactly.
Only my dogs would let me do that, or my kids.
I know. Life changes, right? It's not college anymore.
Yeah. So one of the notes that we have in here for you is just self-care. So how does like fitness and health how does that fall in? I mean, maybe it's obvious, but how do you classify that as self-care?
Yeah. So I think, one of the interesting things about exercise is I feel like it checks off a lot of boxes. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a big advocate of that because number one, it's good for your health, right? We know from a physiological standpoint, it's good for your health. But also when you exercise, right, like it's going to reset a lot of things. Hormone wise, it's going to lower that cortisol level following that exercise, time period. So it can really be a form of self-care because it is a stress reliever, but also at the same time, it's going to improve your health as well. So that's one thing. If you're scheduling time for yourself, that might be one thing that would be like really good because it can it's like a big bang for your buck type item, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is I hear a lot of people like, oh, it's self-care, Sunday, or what are you doing today? And it's just like, wow, to think about like just having a day of the week to be instituting like some kind of self-care. I think by that point, you're probably like past the point of like just one afternoon or one day, right? So realistically, in order to like keep us in kind of that homeostasis where we're not going off the cliff, is what are those little bits of self-care that you can do every day? And one of the things that I like to do, and if it's possible, not everybody has the schedule that will allow them to do it, but just kind of having some maybe meditative time in the morning, just some time to say, okay, this is what my day is going to look like, and kind of sketching things out, or maybe just setting some mini goals for yourself. I think just kind of having some quiet time to yourself every single day where you can kind of check in and say, like, how am I feeling? And that can really help go a long way to keep you feeling kind of leveled off for the whole week. Really, that's the goal, is we want to be able to be resilient. Stress is going to happen no matter what, right? But it's how do we bounce back from it that's going to be the biggest key.
Oh, it's very good advice there.
Yeah.
Think of like, all right, when can I do mine?
Yes. I mean, even a few minutes, right, can go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something in a recent post on social media about little mini chunks of exercise throughout the day too, which I have not tried yet, but I'm going to start one of these days.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, that's we are in a world of where we sit a lot, right? And we are in a world where we are completely just, time is so precious. So it's like, where can we fit in these little bits of time? I think there's even been studies that have been done that have shown even these little bouts of exercise, a minute here, a minute there, is more powerful from a chronic illness standpoint than a 30-minute walk every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's, I think this is something that's going to become, there's probably going to be more studies and research done around this. Mm-hmm. And, my hope is that people will hear more about it, buy into it, and maybe start to use it as a strategy to keep moving a little bit more.
Yeah, I love it. And then you don't have that excuse of, I don't have time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could do something that would take 30 seconds,
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to get into this work, and I guess specifically work with women over 40?
Yeah. So, when I was a young mom, I was working from home with my now ex-husband, but we had a business together at home, and I was watching the kids. I had one who was infant, one was 2. And I just completely felt isolated, alone, just down in the dumps. And I think, anybody who's a mom could probably relate to that, right? You're just kind of feeling like kind of stuck in a rut. And I shared how I was feeling with my doctor at one of my annual appointments. And she was like, yeah, just what do you think about, getting out to the gym and getting some exercise, just kind of that me time. And I was like, well, I'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. Okay. And after that first exercise session, I was like, man, I feel so good. And it was like a light bulb moment that really just hit me like, wow, exercise is so powerful. And just taking that time for yourself to to feel good. And so it wasn't long before the owner of the gym kind of noticed that I was like pretty passionate about this, and asked if I was interested in becoming a coach. And so essentially I was like, all right, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. Because really I felt like if I could share that strategy with one other mom and help her feel better, that would be just something that would fulfill me. So yeah, kind of the rest is history. And it's interesting because, you know, this 40 plus mom, you know, focus that I'm in now. I mean, of course, now I'm also a 40 plus mom, but like over the last, I guess it was last year, I was hit with like perimenopausal symptoms and just realized how detrimental, how challenging those were. And so I kind of went down the rabbit hole of researching that and connecting with the right provider and providers to help me get through that phase. And so now, you know, I've gone forth and gotten this certification to help with women in this phase of life because I want to be equipped. It's all about building that toolbox, right? I think we all know that that's really where, you know, the strategies are, is just making sure that you understand the solutions and what are the right ways to implement them. So yeah, this is my new kind of passion project.
You can tell.
Good. I'm glad you can.
And then what is one piece of advice that you wish more people understood when it comes to working out, or I guess specifically women over 40?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times women, especially in this phase of life, they have this conception that like either have to do everything right or just it's not going to work. And realistically, it is just honestly, even doing 10% better, right, is better than nothing, right? 10% better is better than zero. And so I think if we combine to this concept that it's okay if you can't give it all, because we live life in the gray. I always tell people that life is not black and white. Like we live in the gray all the time. So how do we find like living in the gray when it comes to exercise and fitness and nutrition, right? It's just about doing that little bit better. And you're going to see that you're going to get better at that little 10%. And then before you know, it's 15%, and then it's 20, right? And you're figuring out how to even push yourself a little bit more, but you have to take that first step forward and be okay with not being perfect.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I think for moms, especially working moms, I think that resonates pretty strongly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Megan, our famous last question.
Yeah. So what's one item you couldn't live without in your day-to-day life?
Oh my gosh, I think it's coffee. Yeah, I mean, I walk my dogs in the morning and then it's like I cannot wait to get home and like brew that first cup. So yeah, coffee I think is it, man. It's just coffee is life.
That definitely fits into the whole nutrition thing.
Yes, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I think you ladies are probably on board with that too.
100%.
Yeah.
I know you guys like your coffee.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. And if somebody wants to work with you, we'll put her information in the comments. But are you strictly online, or are you doing anything in person? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, great question. So I work completely remotely. So no matter where you live, I mean, I work with people out of state, out of the area all the time. So you can always work with me. If you put up my info, I don't know if you'll put up my email address or even my social media handles. I've checked my messages and I post a lot. So even if anybody listening today is like, oh, I just am interested in learning more, kind of getting more information like this, you know, that's kind of the theme of all of the things that I post on social, because I want to just make sure that there's a lot of value out there and people get little, because you never know, right? It's just sometimes it's just that one little tip that will turn things around for you.
It's true. And she's right. She does post a lot of really good stuff on her social media. So be sure to check it out.
So follow me and stay connected.
For sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you, ladies. Yes. Great to see you. And thanks for having me on.
Yes.